the depression and the anxiety is not going to stop if you don't do the work. The doctors and the therapists and the psychiatrists can prescribe all of the drugs on their list. And if you do not do the work to uproot, to get down to the bottom, to the core issue, to unpack that childhood trauma, to deal with that grief, that loss, that longing feeling, to show up for yourself, you will continue to be a shell, a mere shell of who you were created to be. Welcome to Art is Healing. Some of you all have no idea why you're here today, but that's okay. You are in the building, and I thank you so much for coming. Thank each and every last one of you all for taking your time today for us to come in and create this healing space for you. So Art is Healing is a month-long healing intensive brought to you by the Metro Arts Commission, Gideon's Army, and your girl, Jeni Calhoun. You will be joining us on this journey to unpack grief. So there are a few things that each one of you have in common. You all have experienced a loss of someone very close to you. And so we often don't have time to really deal with the shadow work of grief. After the funeral is over, most people just go back to their everyday life when the person who has lost someone is still left to deal with that trauma or the feeling of loss. So we created this space just for you. This is your space. This is a safe space for you to share whatever it is that you are going through.
Oh, she said, I'll find something small, so we can do this. I said, okay. Well, we never got to do it. She said, promise me you gonna do it because I will back out. So I promised. But even though she didn't get to live this in here, I went through it. And this was her favorite flower, is the sunflower. And her name on it? Shantan is the stem. Yeah, that's my son's name. And my son actually found my daughter, So I was on the porch and I kept seeing butterflies. And one landed on my lap. And I was like, okay, this means something. So I got my phone, started Googling. And it started talking about rebirth. And I was like, okay, thank you, Jesus. My daughter's been reborn. She's been born again.
My experience today, I would have to say it was very fulfilling. And, we cried, we laughed, we talked, we danced, we ate. And just to come together with a group of ladies that share that same experience, it was wonderful. It felt good. It felt healing.
So sometimes when I'm really passionate about something, I have a way of trying to get people to believe what I'm saying. And it could feel like I'm trying to convert them. And sometimes that makes people not want to open up. So in this space, we have conversations without seeking to convert other people to our system of beliefs.
I think it's most definitely needed. We need more of these healing groups and healing sessions where we can open up and talk about our grief and what we're going through. So I think it's definitely needed.
So for you all to come together to support one another in you all's time of grief, that says a lot. A lot of people do it alone. So to have someone to touch and agree with, it's truly a blessing for you all to have that opportunity. But my part tonight is to come to explain the significance of waist, what they are, what they do for women. So waist beads actually originated back in Africa. It is a part of our culture. specifically in West Africa, but each part of Africa have their own tradition or culture of what waist beads are. And it's a symbol of status in Africa. If you wore waist beads, that means you was royalty. You had wealth, you know, you was very knowledgeable, rich, so to say. But for us, it is for spirituality purposes. You may want to set your intentions for your waist beads. If you are setting a goal for a new job or love or happiness.
We're gonna wear these we're gonna make these bracelets on our wrists, and whenever you're alone, late at night, or you're going through something, I want you to look down at this and know that you are not alone. Remind you are not alone, and that you are your sister's keeper. The reason why I started these healing sessions was because I noticed that a lot of people didn't have compassionate people in their lives. So most people are focused on whatever it is that they're dealing with in their personal life, and they don't take the time to think outside of themselves. And the beautiful thing that I've learned about taking the time to have some compassion and to think about other people is that when you use your energy to help light somebody else's path or to help make their day brighter, I always feel better. I always feel love. I always feel empowered. That iron sharpening iron is not only for them, but it's for me too. So when I say I receive love, it's because I came to give love. And what we come to give is what we receive.
Yes, hi, I'm Erica Kessie. I am a love force with Mysterious Wisdom, celebrating life. I do counseling. I'm here today to be a great grief counselor. I also coach, and I'm an author as well as a speaker.
Exhale through your mouth. Good job. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth.
So an experience like this, a retreat, to allow individuals to move from their normal environment into an environment that is specifically curated for their healing, to process, to have sacred ground and a place that they don't have any distractions, any disconnection from themselves, is powerful. So it started off with them being nothing. They didn't have to worry about anything, what they were going to eat. They didn't have to worry about what they were going to do. They just were along on this journey of healing.
I wanted to be able to give them a healing experience. I wanted to be able to take what I had been doing in the healing circle and do it over the course of a few days, because there's one level of healing that can take place in 2 hours on a Friday evening after a long week at work, after ripping and running and finding a place to drop off the kids, and you finally made it. Yeah, you can have a little bit of breakthrough here and there, but there's nothing like being able to come outside of your home environment for 2 or 3 days, 4, even a week, and really begin to unpack the grief and the co-occurring traumas that may be presenting themselves while you are processing through that grief. Allow us to be grounded and present in this moment. I ask that you allow us to push beyond our own comfort zones and share our full, authentic self.
My name is Nisha Adams. I'm currently grieving the loss of my boyfriend, Sherman Dunlap. It's been a month today since he's passed. This weekend has been very liberating. I've learned that it's okay to not be okay, um, to take the time that I need to properly grieve to do what works best for me. So, some days are easier than others. Some days I have to cry all day or, you know, walk around looking here or there, missing him everywhere I go. But this weekend was really good for me. It allowed me to be around other ladies who are experiencing my pain and going through the same thing that I've been going through.
And so I was there with him when he took his very last breath. And I was not to call today. Come on, y'all. Come on, hug me, sis. Come on. He always told me, like, I done seen the world because my dad was in the Navy. I've seen the world. I've traveled. If I die, just put me in a pound box, keep the money, do it, do something. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but, that was hard to accept, of course, because I was my daddy's only biological child, and I was the daddy's girl, so, yeah. So basic question, like, I've been through so much, so it's like, I just feel like I've always been fighting for myself. It's never ending, and honestly, I'm tired. It's tired.
Guess what, though? You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to fight anymore. I want you to know that you got somebody fighting for you. You got people praying for you.
I've never encountered anything like this that caused me to have to be so emotional or have outbursts of crying and all of these feelings rushing through me at one time. But this weekend, I think.
I want you to know that you enough. You know that, right? You enough. As you are, where you are.
Whenever you do this kind of work, there is the norming, there is the forming, then the norming, then there's the storming. And we hit the storming at that point where we had to talk about the experience together and what it was like for us all to be holding our own stuff and how we had to clear that out in order for us then to be able to move forward in the healing process. Then everything changed back to be light and lovely. And now today the last day, they were able to journal and do guided meditation and really process through by journaling and sound bowls, being able to get to the meat even more of their grieving and relinquish some of those emotions.
This weekend conjured up a lot of emotions and feelings and vulnerability that I never allowed myself to have before or express. And it was very reassuring and comforting to be able to share that in a space that I felt safe and secure and neutral. Because like I said, every woman that is here has gone through some sort of grief or is still mourning the loss of a loved one.
I was at work, and we had a television in one of the offices, and every now and then we would take a break, and we would, just turn it on, look at the news, and I saw breaking news where a man had been murdered, and in my stomach there was a queasiness. Instinctively, in my spirit, I knew that my son was involved, but how, I couldn't tell you. But mentally, I wanted to deny it. And so the process went on, and even I remember coming home that night, trying to quiz my son to see if I could sense anything. But I was still in my mind, a mental state of denial until the detectives came to my job. And they told me a little bit of information as to what they had and told me that my son was involved. But at this point, I'm not in denial, but I'm praising God and I'm talking to God and I'm asking God to keep me, because trouble was nothing new to my family. I just didn't want it to befall my son. And I did what the word of God said and brought my children up in the admonition of the Lord, raised them in church. But I also remember the scripture that says that train a child in the way that they should go. When they get old, they won't depart. But it doesn't mean they didn't have their journey. But I was still struggling at the time. And I remember when the detectives got ready to leave on my job, one of them turned around and said to me, you're strange. And I said, how so? And he said, because most mothers, when we bring this type of information to them, they would be screaming and hollering and crying. He said, but you're not doing it. And I said, because I trust God and I don't believe my son did it. I'm Pastor Judy A. Johnson, Senior Pastor of Claiborne Family of Faith Worship Center here in Nashville, Tennessee at 81 Claiborne Street. I'm also a radio host personality. Hey, Miss Judy on WVOL 1470 AM. I am a wife. I am a mother. I'm a grandmother of 7, 9 or so, looking for some more to come. Also, I'm a sister. I wear many hats.
So would you tell us who you are? Melanie, people call me Mel B, or just Mel. Well, I grew up in a home, East Nashville, mid-income family range. Really great, loving home. My parents did everything that they could, to stay together for the sake of their children. My first child, I miscarried right before I actually got pregnant with Tyrone. Um, it wasn't anything that I didn't even know I was pregnant. And then I was like, you're pregnant. And then a week later, I miscarried. So it wasn't anything that I even felt like I had attachment to. However, 2-3 months later, I was grieving. Like I felt like I literally lost something. Something was ripped from me. In that process, I lost my dog. I had a Rottweiler that I had raised from birth, and in that process, I also lost him. And then, right after I was grieving the loss of my child and my dog, then I got pregnant with Tyrone. So that brought me out, I think, of depression because I was a lady. You know what I'm saying? I was a lady. First of all, I didn't really want to tell nobody because I knew I had lost before. So I waited until I was about 4 months and finally told my mom. And when I told her, she was like, sure, that's what you want to do? Lady, yeah, this is what I'm doing right now. I bought this heart, and it's three hearts in one for my children because I can't forget my angel babies. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really would have 4 children right now. And I'm struggling with one not even being in my house. Imagine how it would be if I had 3 more of the mouse feet on top of mine. Like, people say being a single mother is hard. One of the most hardest jobs you could ever imagine having. You can have somebody that's there that's still willing to work with you in regards to taking care of your child, but you're still going through the emotions, grief, I'm doing this by myself, and regardless of what, I gotta make it work. Somebody please come help me get this together. Like, I'm standing on the edge of a cliff and I'm about to jump because this is so hard, but I can't because I got a mouth to feed back here. So you talk about grief, and then if you're a mother, you can't really grieve. You don't have time for it.
My name is Pastor Amanda Key. So I am a community activist. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am an employee. So I'll put it in that bubble, but I do that bubble, and I do belong to a lot of different organizations here in Nashville that support underserved communities.
Excellent. Excellent. And then tell us a little bit about your family life. Like, how many children do you have?
Let me get this out. Oh goodness, I didn't birth one. He will be 90. In August of this year, I'm so proud of my son. But I have birthed one, but I have a lot of other godchildren in additions to my family. I'm actually the third oldest of 9 children that from around half. And the youngest of my daddy's 14 crew. So, and my sister and my youngest sister and I, we're the last 2. We are 13, 14 of his crew. Yeah, yes. So that means you have a lot of reasons that you a lot. Yeah. So I want to kind of tap into the current terrain. So there have been a recent, and it may just be because of social media, but there's just been a lot of influx of violence against Black and brown people, and it has been broadcast on social media, on the news outlets, and I know that could cause grief. And I just want to know, has there been any grief that you have experienced because of that?
Oh, definitely. One, I want to say thank you for asking the question, because I think with the mix up of like COVID and how everything came crashing down, like this question, I don't think I've ever been asked this question. These past 4 years, I don't think as a boy mom, that's where I call myself, a boy mom, but as a mother who has a son, no one had ever asked me that question, like, how do you feel about the things that have transpired? And so when we think about it, if we bring it here in Nashville, we had the tornado, then we had COVID hit, then everybody went into isolation, and then all these things started happening. We had the George Floyd, the this and that. And so it really put me in like mommy lion mode, to be honest. I felt really sheltered when it came to my son. Like I was like, I don't want you to go nowhere. And no, I don't want you to do these things. And I don't want you to do that. And so after a while, he was like, Mama, like, you gotta let me breathe. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was like, he is a young man and you cannot do him like that. And I said, the fear that is in me, like literally where I live, you could walk out of the parking lot, and we shared a parking lot with like a bodega, like a gas station bodega. And I didn't even want him to go there, and I could see him from my window, because he was like, if he goes to the store, if he walk over here, if he go to this person's house, if he do this, somebody gonna kill him, something's gonna happen. And so inside, I had like this radical torment that the first time he is out of my sight, somebody need to take him from me. And so I had to heal from that. I had to definitely lean into God and say, and give him back his word, because he tells us to remind him of his word. And I kept having to say, God, you said you are going to protect my son. You said that you are going to perfect those things that concern me. And I'm concerned that when that boy go to school, when he go hang with his friends, when he go to the grocery store, that somebody gonna kill him. And if he riding in the car and he get pulled over, and even though they like to wear hoodies, that's just the generation that they are. And it's just like everything about him, I was like, you need to cut your dread. You need to do this. I mean, it was wrong. It was wrong, but I had to come back to self. Why I say I had to allow God to heal me, because I was grieving a death that had not happened. I was preparing myself to get that phone call that on his way home from school, because he was a walker, a neighbor called and said it was a weird looking person in the neighborhood, like my Aubrey, and they traced him and gunned him down. And so one of the other parts of my grief and my fear was that my son is non-traditional. And what I mean by that is, on his 13th birthday, we were 12 years in advance, and on his 13th birthday, we got the diagnosis that he has collagen 6 muscular dystrophy. So my son can't run. My son can't sit in lower places, and he can't run. So to think about him being in a mall or being in an area, they're gonna run him over. If there is a stampede, they're gonna kill him. If anything chaotic or outrageous happens, he can't defend himself. What am I supposed to do? So I agreed, and I hurt, and I walked in fear that somebody was going to kill my child. And so it made me do things like, I'm licensed to care.
Then they started shooting up the churches. So hey, I'm strapped in church. I'm strapped right now while I'm talking to you because I'm not gonna play with nobody. If it come down to a me-to-you situation, I'm gonna be the one that has to tell the story. But it was just fear. Fear of, even today when he came, because he was here at church earlier this morning, but he said, Mama, I'm not gonna stay. I gotta go with Tori again, which is one of his best friends, because they're doing a photo shoot for his birthday. Where y'all going? What y'all doing? I had probably texted him like 20 times and I said, you need to calm down. He's safe, he's fine. He's with people that will not let anything happen to him. So I had to do that evaluation too. To my son, like sit him down and say, I need you to understand that you don't go with nobody who's gonna have your back, and you better have their back too. I had to just really just, not necessarily program him, but train him. I wasn't the parent, and not talking bad about the parents, but I wasn't the parent that was like, you need to be in compliance and raise your hand when they tell you to put your hand. Yeah, when they tell you to put your hands up, put your hands up. But I wasn't that parent to say, if you are obedient to what the police say, nothing's gonna happen to you. The devil is a lie and the truth ain't in it, because we got to see that. We got to see compliance on national television, video on national television, and them mamas still back to bury their kids. So compliance was not the answer. And plus, I'm a daughter of the police. So I stood in the middle of the police brutality situation because my father was NYPD, my uncle was NYPD, and they were good officers. So when you said that all officers are bad, no, I didn't agree with that because I was raised by two and good. But I did agree with there is some spoiled apples in the bunch. So when it came to my son, I would reach out to my uncle and say, Uncle, okay, I know you're retired, but tell me some best practices too to talk about with my son as a black boy who got dreadlocks, who is tall, who like to wear hoodies, and sometimes they got a smart mouth. What do I do with them? Because we know appliance is not the answer. So yes, I agree. I leaned into other parents. Most definitely, I leaned into God over everything, but I had to heal. And I had to not put my fears project my fears onto my son, because he stated this all the time, that he put things in the atmosphere and we can speak things into existence because words have power. And so I said, Amanda, hold on. Are you speaking this so heavy that you gonna allow the enemy to take your son? So I had to retract some things and calm myself down and say, okay, now I really have to trust God because he said he's gonna take care of my son.
I'm Cedric Townsend. I'm a licensed massage therapist, master Reiki practitioner. One big thing for me was, of course, losing a loved one. My grandmother, who practically raised me. Around the time that she passed, I was still in school. I was going, and I wasn't really home. And knew she was sick. And it just wasn't hitting me. But then, like, we had the funeral, and when they were, like, committing her body to the ground, I just broke. And it was like, I had been so busy, I wasn't processing, or grieving it. And so I had just a moment, like, I just had to, it hit me. I had to stop. And I think that's one memory I can relate to grief, and just taking time to really process, learning through that, and taking time to really process grief healthily. Like I said, that kind of taught me a lot. My grief journey.
My name is Tiffany Pettigrew, and I'm a multi-site community director. I'm also a mom. I have an 8-year-old son, so I am a boy mom. I also bake cakes, designer cakes, and I'm a licensed cosmetologist, so I enjoy doing hair, anything in the beauty industry as well. I'm a creative person, so a little catering here and there. I am a little everything. I had moved back to Owensboro from living in Nashville for a while. And actually, I had signed up to go to school in Florida. I had rented my apartment, put in a 2-week notice. I was out of there, and I had found out that my mother had cancer. And I decided to stay in Nashville. And have her to come here for treatments. Have her to come here for treatments. And we just worked through it. They originally gave her 6 months to live, but my mother is definitely strong in faith, and so are we, that no one can give you a time of your life. And we just took every day at a time. A year had passed. She's still around, still doing good, still doing treatments. Um, my mother switched her prayer and asked us to do the same. You know, a lot of people pray for like healing, like, don't let this happen, like, take it away, take it away. And my mother told me, she said, there's one thing I want you to switch up, and that is to ask God's will to be done. Mainly because she knew where she was at in life. And the other thing is because she didn't want us to have disappointment. She said, so if you want to pray for me, pray that I don't have pain. Pray that this process is easier for our family. And switching up that prayer, showed me the grace that he gave her, because she never had pain. So moving forward to the time frame that, closer to the time that she passed away, I could see a change in her health and her overall self. So I moved to Nashville, put my schooling on hold, job on hold, packed up, left Nashville, and went to Owensboro. At that time, she decided to stop doing treatments, and we just wanted to live life. So we took those months and time that she had left to just kind of celebrate life, live life, and eat good and do what we do. Right after she transitioned, I think it was just a moment of, I don't know. For me, it was just like silence. I think I was just here. I could see people moving, I could see people talking to me, but it was just that way of like, I'm just autopilot. Like, I didn't know what to do, how to feel, or how to act. And I think a lot of it came from the preparation that my mother built with me during the time that I was with her. Um, she would make little jokes, you know, here and there about the fact that she's not going to be around long. So she tried to kind of prep us for it. So I didn't know what to do. Like, I had different types of emotions. I had emotions of being overwhelmed. I had emotions of being tired through that process with her. I had the emotions of, um, I'm having a mother. And it was just difficult because as peaceful as my mother passed away, I was woke up to her taking her last breath. So it was every day that I woke up that I would have to relive that emotion of her being gone. And that's how my day started. And I just kind of worked through it. And at that time, I had family, but I didn't have it in the same light, in the same support, because they hurt so bad. And she was the one that kind of kept everybody together. So now they looked at me as her. So I had to be strong for everyone else, for my grandmother, for her siblings, my family, my dad, kind of teaching him how to put meals together, how to, you know, wash your clothes this way and that way, because he had a wife that did all of that, you know, and it's not to take anything from him, but he didn't have to worry about it. So it was kind of like Thanksgiving dinner was always on my mother. I think that was the next major holiday that came up, and my family kind of put it on me, you know, and it was just very difficult to to grieve because I felt like I couldn't talk to someone else about it. And so I had met my pastor, and I was able to just talk to her about what I was feeling and what I'm going through. And, I'm very close to my aunts, and I had one that was extremely close to her sister, which is my mother, that everything she wanted to say to her, she had to say to me, and it was very difficult, to help her get through that while I'm going through it. And I don't want to put that on her because I see how, her everyday is, or talking to another one of my mothers. That was very difficult to her during that time. So I had support, but not the same type of way. I think grief changed for me when I found out I was pregnant. And it was a year later to her passing.
To the day, right?
To the day. And I think, of course, I didn't find out to the day of, but once I found out, it kind of gave me something else to wake up and focus on. Not saying that I forgot my mother, but now it was replaced with not the thought of death, but the thought of life. And I think that changed grief and how I looked at it from that point. So there's not much you can say other than how you feel or what you're going through. It's okay, that I wouldn't know really what to say other than just be there for them. Sometimes it's not about what you said. It's just a person sitting next to you in silence, because sometimes it's hard to hear people say, oh, it's going to be okay, or I know how you feel, because I don't think anyone knows how anybody feels. Even if they've lost in the same type of way, your pain is different, so it's just being there. I'm a person that doesn't have many words for anybody, so I will sit next to you. I'll hold your hand if you need me to, or rub your back, or just be there. So I don't know what I would say for a person other than take each day at a time. Some days it be better than the others. I might cry harder on year 6 than I did on year 2. But it's okay.
Now, if you had to speak to a woman who may just be on a journey, may have heard that, or even be in fear of her son or her daughter going away to prison, and she's going to be grieving while her child is still living. If you could speak to them, what would you say?
The same thing I just told them, my testimony. Trust God. Trust God in the process, because it's nothing. You are limited in what you can do except for prayer and keeping your mind straight and doing the right thing. Of course, when my son was incarcerated, he would call home and he would ask me to do things that I felt like would get him in deeper trouble while he was in prison, and I didn't do it, and it made him angry. But I refused to do what would dig him deeper in. I kept my faith, and I remember my son, when he first went to prison, he was talking about he was going to change his name, and I really used some cuss words because I'm bilingual, but I don't cuss like that no more. Let me say that. Okay, let's be real. And so I told him, you ain't going to change your name to nothing, because this is your name. That's what I name you, and that's what it's going to blank, blank stay. And guess what he did? He fought against it, but he kept his name. Because it was his, it meant something. Because I prayed that God would give me that boy, and he did. And so I would encourage you to know what your child meant to you when you received them, when you found out you were pregnant with them, him or her. And I would advise you to know that they, even though they may be incarcerated, that they're still watching you. Because one of the things that my son said to me later was, Mama, you kept your faith. I kept my faith in Jesus. I did not give up. I had many people say, well, at least you know where he at and where he sleeping at night, this and that. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted my son home. But at the same time, I do realize that sometimes God will put them away as safekeeping. Because sometimes out here where they can just run rampant, hey, the enemy can get their hands on them. But sometimes God will put them in prison, somewhere to lock them up, keep them safe, and to cause them to think. Because while they're running around, there's a lot of distractions. Not that they're not distractions there. But God, if you trust him, he'll work on them. You don't even know he's been worked on. I have had plenty of testimonies coming out of prison about my son. So I would encourage you that if your child is getting ready to be locked up, even though you don't want them to be locked up, trust God, trust the process, as I heard one of my young ministers say. Know that God will work it out for your good. If you're going to trust him for one thing, he says, if you trust me for one thing, trust me for it all. Don't just trust me for the car, the house, the clothes, the bank account. No. In the sickness and the disease, trust me when your loved ones or them children that you done raised up have gone astray. Because guess what? There's a story called the prodigal son. That prodigal son didn't go to prison, but he went out there and he was doing everything he was big enough to do. But one day at his lowest point, God brought him back home. And the thing about it, his father didn't give up. He was looking for his son. You got to be looking for your children. If they say your child gonna get life, pray against that. Because we serve a miracle working God. David says the wonder working powers of God never cease to perform. I would tell you to get in that scripture. Go on the internet, Google, give me all the scriptures that pertain to prison. And then you read them and you study, you meditate them and you pray. And I even plead in my case. Let me tell you about a case when it came to one of my nephews. I'm not going to name them. They were looking at 6 life sentences, because of the problems and the trouble they had been in. Because sometimes the enemy will come back to try to trap you up. I never said that he was innocent of some things, but that particular thing, we know he was not those things. We knew he was not guilty of. The policeman lied, people lied, they did. But I talked to God. And I pleaded my case with God. I told God, God, the government has people in places and they killing people and they doing this and they doing that. I said, God, I'm not saying that they not, because I wasn't there, but I know this particular thing. I just really talked to God. And I will never forget, my nephew stayed locked up, I'm going to say almost 6 years or some years, I'm not sure. But when I got ready to turn 60, God told me sitting in my basement downstairs, he said, this is a birthday gift to you. No lie. And I didn't know that, the courts, when they have cases that they were, what is that thing called? When they deliberate on whether you're going to get time or not. This is a testimony for real, because there was some more people involved in this. The deliberation, when they decide on whether you're guilty or not. My niece called me at 9 o'clock that morning, on a Saturday morning, and she told me that the jury was going in for deliberation and they would be out at 11 o'clock that night. I'm telling you. I waited 11 o'clock that night. I want to say 11:05. My niece called me and they had cleared my nephew of everything. Everything. And the crazy part about it, later on, 2 months, we found out later, 15 minutes into deliberation, they had already filed that my nephew was not guilty. But see, you have to wait the process. It's not always in your time and when you want it. Sometimes you got to go through those pains. You got to go through the pressing and the pushing and the trusting of God. Trust him even though you don't see it. And know that God has all of our best interests for good. So that's what I would say. I would say, for real, like the old folks used to say, hold on to God's unchanging hand.
Now, if this is the time, if you were waiting for a wake-up call, then this is it. You are not alone. Your tribe exists in this world. There are people who have walked that journey, that road to healing from grief, from trauma, from incest and molestation. There are people who have walked that road before you, and they know the pitfalls. They know the detours. They know the cheat codes. And if you would like to make your journey through life a little bit easier, find those people. Connect with those people. Build community with those people. Go outside in nature and ground. Get outside. Open up the windows. Let love, let light in. Fresh air circulating through your house can shift your whole atmosphere. Go outside and hug a tree. I know that sounds wild, right? This little girl from Detroit telling you to go outside, the east side of Detroit at that, and hug a tree? Yes. Go outside and hug a tree. Be refueled. Take your shoes off. Burrow your toes in the ground. Reconnect to the inner you. It's not gonna work if you don't do the work. That's my message to you.